Hello?
Yep.
Oh, okay, they're muted.
السلام عليكم.
Salam, Ahmed, how are you?
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته أحمد. All right.
Okay, perfect.
So,
They can hear me. Some of them are texting, so on the text, so the chat. Okay.
All right. So yeah, we expecting 30 people to join, and plus some other OTU members that we give them the option to also join.
Okay. Great. Perfect. Okay, people are joining slowly. Okay. Perfect. Okay. As people are joining in, just quickly, I'm gonna introduce guys. So we are very grateful here, everyone, that we have the amazing team, EQUIOP.EXE from Spain, Madrid, to be presenting today about the climate and urban sustainability. We are very, very honored to have them here. So before I start, I'm going to quickly introduce about the firm. So EQUIOP.EXE is led by Javi, Toni, and Silvia. They are 3 Spanish architects who, after working together in the United States, decided to return to Madrid to study the postgraduate Masters in Advanced Architecture projects at the Polytechnic University of Madrid. And right now they have established their own firm. They have been individually awarded several fellowships to the future develop their studio and the investigations and their career. They have also carried out teaching activities as assistant professors at the Polytechnic University of Madrid, the School of Architecture, in both the undergrad and the graduate courses. The topic they have been reflected on as teachers revolved around climate change, resources management, and historical heritage. Among other achievements, in 2021, they have won the first prize in the competition for the construction of a residential tower in the north of Spain. And in 2022, they organized a roundtable at the Contemporary Art Center and Culture Space Mataredo. Excuse my Spanish, I'm trying to get better in Spanish. The main cultural institution in Madrid on natural wastelands and waste as a legacy. This year, they have been awarded first prize and to be charged of the Arquitectura magazine, and they will be part of the executive for the next 3-year cycle, where they will explore and enhance the structural concepts of the new Europe Baja House. So I think I don't need to say more. This is definitely enough to represent the amazing team that we have here, and I can go all day, honestly. So Silvia is going to be presenting today. So thank you, Silvia, for presenting, and with also the amazing teams of Toni and Javi joining too.
Well, thank you so much, Muneer. Thank you all for coming here today and sharing your time with us. For us, it is an honor for us to be here and participate of this collaborative environment that you are all creating. I'm gonna start sharing screen. While I keep talking, if you have any problem watching it, just let us know and we will try to figure it out. We would like to thank the Urban Hackathon for having us here today. And we would like to personally thank Muneer, who is a friend of ours, whom we met while we were all living in the United States. And even though none of us was aware at that time, he was a witness of the origins of our firm. So it's very special for us to be here today. We're going to divide the presentation into 2 parts. The first one is going to be a brief introduction to our firm, the kind of projects that we do, because we think it's important to give an idea of the ecosystem that we move, the architectural ecosystem that we move. And we also think it's important to share our perspective of architecture. And later we're going to focus in one specific project that we hope you find useful for the project you are currently working on. So these are the origins of the firm. This is Toni, Javi, and me. This is with some friends, some of them present here today, traveling around the US. We're the directors of the firm. At some point, we decided to go back to Madrid and to go back to university and enroll in a postgraduate program, which was focused on advanced architectural projects. And while we were working, when we were studying this program, at the end of the year, we won a first prize of a competition. So this led us to set the foundation of our firm. Wait, let me in. I'm gonna let some people there join in. Okay. This important project that we won is very special for us. It's currently under development right now. Okay. And it's one part of the three pillars that we have within our firm, right? We have the first one, which is research and academia, which is linked to our postgraduate program. We have the practice one linked to this competition prize, but we have a third one that we can talk later, which is collaborations. Regarding the research and academia, we do have a project right now, which is the one we're going to develop further later on, which is called Life Act, which is led by the European Commission. And it's for the introduction of nature-based solutions within the urban environment. We do have 3 ongoing investigations within the firm, which are with the starting point was the final thesis that we had to do for our master. So one of them is called Retail Apocalypse, and it's based on the user-centered design philosophy applied to commercial environments. Another one is a shout out to architecture, which is the construction of the city through urban culture. And the last one is corporate or die, which is analyzing the context disruption triggered by corporate architecture in vulnerable environments. We, as Muneer mentioned before, we are also part of the executive team of the Architectura magazine for the next 3 years, where we're going to be going in depth in this new European new Bauhaus that we fully agree with, and it's based on how should we rethink the built environments right now. We are in inflection points globally, and the main concepts of this new European Bauhaus are sustainability, inclusion, and beauty, which are topics that we fully align with. These are some parts of the mock-up of the magazine that we are currently working at. So regarding the second pillar, which is practice, it all started with this competition, even though we had collaborated before, working for other people and for ourselves. And this competition is for the construction of a residential tower in the north of Spain. It's 120 units of build-to-rent housing. And it's starting right now, so it's a very exciting project, and we are fully involved with it. This is the competition panel, so how we won. We also are very active in competitions. We think this is a huge opportunity for us to rethink about architecture, about global problems that affect architecture, and also to think about different typologies and how we can introduce the knowledge that we get from other areas into the architecture. So we made some competitions for residential programs, for sanitary programs, we've done some institutional competitions too, and cultural buildings, but also we like to face with certain aspects such as energy rehabilitation of existing buildings, and also about heritage and conservation. We think it's important in these times to think about identity and integrate it within this wider context that we have with global problems. And the third pillar, which for us is one of the most special because we are aware it's not the most usual for other architectural firms, is that we do collaborations with other with other studios, not only architecture but also engineering studios. This has allowed us to participate into big scale projects that are otherwise very hard to reach for young firms such as ours. And this has opened us new horizons in architecture. This has introduced us in different cultures. We've learned a lot. We've been able to give some fresh inputs to these larger companies, and we think this is as important as the other two. So we don't understand these three pillars in our firm as independent areas, but we think they relate to each other, and what we learn from one area we can reproduce in the other. And also the questions that emerge in the projects that we have, we do have the tool of academia and research to try to find answers, or try to find what other people thought were the right answers about it. So now jumping into the specifics of the project that you might find most useful, which is the LifePack Madrid project. This is a very complex project because it's international, but it's also very local. So I'm trying to do my best for you to understand the full ecosystem. Okay, if you guys have any questions, feel free to whether type it, or we can talk about it at the end of the presentation. The LifePack project, which is led by the European Commission, is leading 3 pilot projects in Europe. One of them in Poland, in the city of Krakow. One of them in Belgium, in the city of Leuven, and the third one in Madrid, in Spain, in the city of Madrid, which is the one we're obviously participating. And as I mentioned before, the LifePack program is based on the introduction of nature-based solutions within the urban environment. We know this concept is currently very widely used, but we like to always put the definition that the European Commission has of this concept, because there are many definitions, right? So this is one we can all work with as a starting point. So solutions that are inspired and supported by nature, which are cost-effective and simultaneously provide environmental, social, and economic benefits and help build resilience. Of course, this is like one of the good things that it brings more and more diverse nature and natural features and processes into cities, landscape, and seascapes through locally adapted, resource-efficient, and systemic interventions. One of the priorities of the project, specifically in Madrid, was to identify what other initiatives were already taking place within the city by other agents other than LifePack, because the objective was to connect them all and try to create a synergy that allowed us to create a stronger project, because now we have different entities involved with different goals, different perspectives, and it provides a stronger environment for it. So what they identified by the City Council of Madrid is that they were already having 2 different programs that were complementary and that shared some goals with the LifePack program, which were the one about wild playgrounds, which is trying to reintroduce nature within the playgrounds of the schools, and also school vicinity design guidelines. So this rewildering of the schools is not only happening inwards, but it's also happening outwards in the urban design and in the urban environment of the schools. This is the ecosystem of agents which we are participating in only in the Madrid project. I'm not sure you can read the smaller titles. I'm going to try to translate them all to you. As you can see, in the center is LifePack, which is the European project. And there are 3 main actors in the Madrid pilot project, which are the Polytechnic University of Madrid, the City Council of Madrid, and themselves, which is an organization that is, they are experts in a collaborative process and collaborative urban processes. Here you can see that it's not only institutions, public institutions that collaborate. We also have private institutions. We have educational, of course, but we also have sociologists who participate, ecologists, biologists. We have architectural firms such as SATS that participate in the implementation phases of the projects. And this creates a very rich networked environment that sometimes it's a little bit hard to manage because there are many voices speaking in the project, but this is why it has, even though it's a very horizontal, everybody has a voice, it does have a very strong structure that allows to everybody know when they have to jump in the project and provide the information and expect for the input. So they are regulated by these 3 main actors. Okay, Madrid. What happens in Madrid? What happens is that we are located in the south of Europe, in the center of the city, and the pilot project that we are working on is specifically located in the south part of the city. What happens in Spain, as in many other parts of the world, is that it's very it's a country that is very vulnerable to the conditions that we are already suffering about climate change, and that will be increased in the next years here. You can see in this map that most of the part of the area of Spain is already in medium, high, or very high risk. Madrid in particular is located in the high risk here in the center. And the risks that we have to face here are very, very strong heat waves that they are already taking longer and being a lot warmer than they used to be before. We're already suffering droughts. Whenever it rains at the same time. So we are already facing problems of floods. And of course, this leads to the use of active climate systems as the air conditioners, which creates another new problem within the urban area, which is lower quality because we use more private transportation because you cannot walk, and noise pollution. So these are problems that many people in many other areas of the world are facing, but these are the ones that we are focusing within this project. This is the neighborhood of Villaverde. And specifically, there is an area here called San Cristobal, which is where we are intervening here. This specific area is very, we have to treat it with a lot of care because it's one of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in Madrid. So it's not, as you can see here in the vulnerability index in this map, this is the area we're working at. It's located in the highest part, the highest rank of vulnerability index. And not only that, but it's also one of the areas with a lower income per household in the whole vicinity of Madrid here. This is actually named as the lowest income. What has happened historically in this neighborhood is that it's been overdiagnosed. So there has been many projects taking place in this area, but they mostly focus on the early stages of the project. So it's a lot of research taking place. There's a lot of reports that have been provided, but there has not been many actions taken here. So one of the first priorities of the Polytechnic University of Madrid was for one of the main things that the first things that they asked us to do was to have a look of all of the reports that has taken place on this neighborhood and try to create this map. So trying to summarize, okay, what information do we have? Do we already have? We don't have to go there and start from zero. We do have a lot. But one of the most special things about the LifePath project is that it's not going to be completed until it's fully implemented. So hopefully, and I think it's going to go well, this is not going to be just another project in a folder in a desk. So these are the parts that we have participated as a firm, as EQUIOP.EXE. Specifically, we were part of we were in charge of the concept design of the project. We had to go through the co-design phase and the participatory process that we had to do prior to at some point to introduce the feedback that we get and redo the concept design according to this feedback. And we're currently in the phase of construction documents. What's interesting here is that for the concept design part and the co-design, we were hired by the Polytechnic University of Madrid, one of the agents. But right now, for the construction documents, we are hired directly by the Madrid City Council. So it's interesting because even though we are still within the same project, the fact that we have to respond to different clients, even though they do share some goals, they don't share all of their goals. So it's good for the project to keep an equilibrium, and the fact that we jump from one agent to another. So it also helps us to get a holistic perspective of the whole project. So the concept design, which was the very first part that we did after this mapping of the previous report that we were seeing just now, was to understand the urban tissue of this neighborhood. This neighborhood was created in at the middle of the 20th century. It was built super fast because it was created at a moment where Madrid was increasing its population a lot, so the quality of the constructions is not very good. So their objective at that time was to be able to give a house to all of the migrants from different areas of Spain that were arriving to the capital. So there were some they were not so picky with the construction methods they were using. Specifically, we are intervening in the school Sagunto, which is located right here, because as we talked, this is not only a life pact proposal, but we are also working from the school vicinities program in the City Council of Madrid. So we have to use the tools that they provide and the resources that they provide to introduce these European goals. Just to give you an overview of the area, this is the current state pictures of the vicinity of the school. And this is the social housing that is there. These are linear blocks. They have, most of them have, if not all of them have cross ventilation, which is good. It was the way they had in the 50s to ventilate the housing. But as you can see, it's not a consolidated urban tissue. There are many urban voids. There are many places that are waiting to be built. And this is the school you can see right here with the brick and the yellow fence. This is the area and the surrounding area of the school. This is the entrance. We can see that we have a very opaque fence here. This is the main entrance. You could never tell this is the main entrance. This is very small. It leads you to a very narrow sidewalk. You can see there are cars parked right in front of it. The width of the road is very wide. We do have some containers in front of it, which does not give a very good impression for the kids. And this is an area that is specific to this project. So here we can see how another project that was different from the City Council merges here as this part of the synergy that we were mentioning, which is the interblock areas that we have between these linear blocks right here. This used to be a green space full of nature that has been degrading during the years. Whenever they have a problem with a tree, they usually just cut it down, but they did not replace it. So now we have some areas that are not as green as they used to be. So the whole neighborhood has been suffering a process of degradation from the 50s when it was built to today. And these are the elements we had to work with. Okay, we had the common elements of the school vicinities project of the Madrid City Council, which were the school plaza, educational street, tree-lined grades, and service band. And we had the specific elements of the Sagunto school, which were the interblock areas. Here the school plaza, so we all get a hint of what was the goals of each of these elements. The objective of the school plaza is to create a space next to the main entrance of the school. This is happening all over the city of Madrid, okay? To promote an inclusive space for different segments of the population. This is something they really focus on. They don't want it to create only for kids spaces. The idea here is to integrate different people from different ages to create a very rich social environment. The way to do it here in the school plaza specifically is by removing very directed playgrounds, and on the other hand, providing surfaces that allow like a free, empowering play. So it gives room for the imagination of the kids while not creating a very kid-led urban space. We do have the educational streets, which objective is to improve the conditions of the school environments and transforming them into healthy spaces and improving the safety and the accessibility. It usually goes by introducing green areas, by removing parking area, by narrowing the width of the streets. You know, this is very it's very typical resources that are used worldwide in the urban design, but specifically are important here for this, especially for the safety of the kids, because if we reduce the speed of the cars and we improve the visibility by reducing the width of the streets, we are able to create these safe, accessible spaces. Also, there's this concept that the city of Madrid have, which is a 3 lines way. What they want is to, in a very subtle way, create the impression in the pedestrians that they are accessing a school area. So this is creating a transition and an entry into the school vicinity by putting a tree gate. It's like a symbolic name, but we think it's very beautiful. And the last element of the school vicinities project is the service fund. So by removing the parking spaces, we reintroduce services, urban services in this area. So we can introduce urban furniture, we can introduce nature, we can introduce parking spots for bikes and other means of soft mobility. And we encourage kids to arrive to school not only by car, but also use other methods of soft transportation. And for the interblock areas, one of the things that is most important here is the renaturalization of the areas. We want to bring back the elements, the natural elements that were there when the neighborhood was designed and that it's been degraded. It's also important since this is a very vulnerable neighborhood, because then we can provide potential climatic refugees. If we create staging areas in the interblock areas, it can also create meeting points for the neighbors and reinforce the social network that already exists within the vicinity. So it's not only about nature; it's also about social goals. So here we try to merge the programmatic goals of the Madrid City Council with the, sorry, this is in Spanish, this is the educational streets, this is the tree gate right here in an elevated intersection, this is the school plaza, which is located right by the entrance of the school. And here, this is the renaturalization strategy that we followed in the concept design area of the interblock parks and the plaza. What is interesting here is that we could not interfere in all of the interblock areas because not all of them are owned by the city council. So this is when the real world crashes with our ideal world. So now it's very important to speak with real facts in the table with the city council and all of the other agents involved to see what we can really do and not only let it go in our imagination and without any real constraints. So the sequence that we followed was first we increased the pedestrian surface. Then, as we mentioned, we made a reduction of the road. The third step was the introduced nature in the horizontal plane. And the last one was the introduction of vegetation in the vertical plane, which is very important because this helps to reduce the impact of solar radiation, which is not only within the surfaces of the public space, but also in the facades of the buildings. So this is the area of at the end of the concept design, this is the area that we were intervening. And this is a very fast collage that we did to provide an idea of how it would affect to introduce these vertical planes with vegetation here, that remove this very opaque fence here. So we can give privacy to the school through the vegetation, while we keep security of the public space, because now from the interior of the school, you could keep control of what is happening in the outside with the little kids. So it's a soft control strategy. The next step that took place, which was one of the most interesting for us, because we were able to receive feedback from very different agents here, was the co-design and participatory process review. So what happened was that these initial phases were taking place in parallel. So simultaneously, it was happening data collection and diagnosis of the neighborhoods. a participatory process for co-design of the urban plaza, and the Sagunto school concept design that we were in charge. So what we got at the end of this was an input collection, which goal was to reinform the project in the transition from the concept to the execution of the project. We have three main categories here of the inputs. One of them was the inputs from the neighborhood community. Another one was from the school community, and the last one was the environmental indicators that were provided to us by Polytechnic University of Madrid, by ABIO in particular. These are the agents here. They were giving us different kinds of information. It's not only a report that they give us. It will make everything much easier, but usually these projects have a very short schedules, and sometimes we have to work with what their working document. So here from Denso, GR21 and Surcos Urbanos, we got a report, a presentation, and the minutes of the presentations that they had held before. From Basurama, we got also a report on the presentation and the minutes, and from ABIO, we got to meet with them and actually discuss in person what was the current situation, the environmental situation of the neighborhood. And this is what we created. We created another report with a revision of the concept design, where we put here the category of the inputs, the agents, the comments, how we could implement these comments within the urban design, and which elements of the school vicinities programs we could use to absorb these comments here. Another thing that happened at this stage was that here, as you can see, we redefined the area of the intervention, because what we had at the beginning was a very linear project with these little appendices that were happening with the interblock and the urban plaza. And we realized to concentrate the efforts in the urban plaza and in the immediate area around it would create a stronger intervention with a gravity point in the school plaza, with different gravitational points in the interblock areas. So in general terms, the redefinition of the scope of the project had positive effects in the general objectives of the project. Also, as we were saying, the transformation of the project with a very linear character based on strict design into one with a strong centrality eliminates the risk of specific actions of a certain testimonial nature, which is something we were very worried about. And the Plaza Escuela project would be erected as a new center of the neighborhood, around which the rest of the interventions will orbit. There's something very cool that happened also in these states. As you can see, it's not. This is a live project. It's constantly changing, it's constantly receiving feedback from different agents here. We got this information from the Spanish Society of Ornithology, which we thought was very interesting, and we are thinking about how we can introduce it within the project. And it is that we have these three species here, which I'm going to say the Spanish name, Vencejos, Aviones, and Golondrinas, which were specific to this area, and they used to live in these interblock areas here when they were very when it was more nature interblock area, right? So what has happened now that they're cutting down the trees and not introducing new trees is that they're removing not only vegetation but also the biodiversity of this area. The temperature of these interblock areas is increasing because now they are not shaded, and also the temperature of the interior of the house is increasing because they don't receive the shade of these trees. What happened before this all went wrong was that the trees in the interblock area created a more comfortable outdoor temperatures, so the neighbors could just open the windows in order to refrigerate their houses. And these birds were in charge of eating the mosquitoes and the different flies that live there. So it was a very it was an ecosystem that worked. And the moment that you remove the trees, then the birds stop coming here. Then you start having problem with insects, and people cannot open their windows because it's very warm outside, and because you have insects that you don't want within your house. So we thought this information was incredible, and we're still thinking how we can introduce it. So for the concept design review, this is the new intervention area that you can see here. We are still using the elements of the of the City Council of Madrid Cool Vicinities program. This is mandatory. We have to do it because this is a way to make LifePack able to work with them. What we got was an increase of almost 200% of permeable surface. In the current state, it was 1,650 square meters, and now we are in this point right here. It's a very good goal. We did a study on the radiation and solar exposure and the footprint in the interblock areas in order to understand what was happening over here. And of course, since they are oriented east-west, we have not too bad conditions, but still, as you can see, it's a very vulnerable area. This is a schematic bioclimatic plan. We try to see where we should reinforce the introduction of trees. We try to understand how the shadow that is thrown by the buildings itself could help us to trigger certain areas of the public space. And this is a section of the proposed project where we can see how most of the pavement is permeable right here. So the only part that would not be permeable would be the pavement for the road, for the specific width of the road. The reason why we cannot do this permeable is because the oils of the cars usually bring a lot of pollution and heavy metals within the earth with the water. So if you reintroduce them in the soil, you could contaminate the area. So this is introduced in the drainage system, but the rest of it is introduced through sustainable drainage systems reintroduced within the soil. This is an axonometric view of the school plaza. You can see how we try to avoid the specific fertile playground here. Of course, we do introduce certain things such as this light right here or some climbing areas, but it's mostly to encourage the free play and the imagination play for the kids. This also invites other segments of the population to this area, because now what you have is the higher comfort urban area, and that is being used. And when urban spaces are used, they're safer, because then you have this informal security that people watch and take care of each other. This is a vegetation characterization that we've done of the area. We have this premise of a tree hole a tree. So we want to reintroduce trees where they were designed at the beginning. We make a study on the tree species, the age, the trunk perimeter that we have in our area. This diagram is something that I hope you guys find useful for the projects that you are working on, because sometimes it's very hard to identify the layers that we are working with in urban design. So we try to explode them in this diagram here. So in the upper area, we can find the 3 dimensions of the climate refugee. So in order to get this climate refugee in the urban space, we know we have to introduce shading areas, and the best way to do it is by introducing trees, because this also aligns with these biodiversity goals, right? So we identified which areas were the one who received the highest amount of radiation and sun exposure, and we reinforce shading by introducing vegetation in these parts. We also here have the 3 dimensions of public space, which is more related to program specifically, and it's important to foster comfort and identity in this space. This identity, we think it's a priority, right? Because we tend to have places that look like any other place within the city, and neighbors like to think they belong to their neighborhood. So it doesn't have to be something very exaggerated, but it's something that we do have to take into account in the project, and it's something that certainly we try to introduce always. And of course, use an activity, as we were mentioning, as the basis for a safe space. And the last one is the soil area right here, which is another layer that is very important, and it has to do more with materiality. So we would have the nature in the upper area, program in the right area, and materiality in the lower. So here our priority is to allow for sure the reintroduction of biodiversity in these areas, and the introduction of permeable pavements and sustainable urban drainage systems here. This would be an axonometric part of the interblock area. And this is a collage that we created to provide an idea of all of the aspects that we have in mind, right? So by working with these more abstract images, it's just as when you do a hand drawing, you don't have the constraints of specifics, but it gives you the opportunity to create a strong image that can serve as a focus point, right? So we know it's not going to look like that, but we will try to make it look as much like that as we can. And the phase we are doing right now, so the 3 prior phases are already completed, and we are in the construction documents. Of course, I would love if we could have shared the documents with you, but they are in process, so we don't have much to show. What we can show you right now is just like a plot on how it is right now, and 3D that we're working, and the specifics of the Urban Plaza. Well, that's it. Shukran. I hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to ask us any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Silvia. That was amazing. You went through like an entire lecture speaking. That's really cool.
I hope you're not tired.
No. I'm pretty sure everyone is excited. So everyone, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to write it in the Zoom chat. I see we have a question here. It says, may you please explain a bit on the process of creating the guidelines policies? I'm not quite sure. Okay, Ahmed, you can speak, Ahmed, if you would like to elaborate more on your question.
Yes, apologies. At the beginning, I sort of understood it that you are working with the different, I think, authorities. So with the university and then the city, and you showed the guidelines at the beginning. I might have understood that you worked with creating those, or you just followed the guidelines.
Yeah, we didn't create the guidelines; they were given to us.
Okay.
So they do have a specific teams set for these parts, and we were they were given straight to us. So we have to just go through them and try to digest them, which is usually a tough work too, and then translate them into our urban design.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry I disappoint you.
Actually, I have a question. Silvia, you mentioned a lot
great.
about the heat radiation, and as you guys know, here in the Middle East, heat waves is a big issue, and some of the ways we can sort of regulate and kind of balance out the heat radiations by vegetation. Could you just, if you might, speak more about how we can utilize the idea of vegetation with radiation maps, and how do we implement those on a certain space?
Yes, sure. This is actually one that could be called a nature-based solution, right? So this is, but what we did here, because it helped us a lot, was to divide the horizontal surface and how to intervene in them, and the vertical surface and how to protect them, because the strategies that you need to follow are a little bit different. So in order to, of course, you have the tree, which we all know this is a single element that provides the shade, but there are also other strategies. For example, here in Spain, in Madrid, we have the problem of the heat islands, which is something that happens within urban environments when you have these pavements that are dark. They absorb a lot of heat. and usually they radiate it at nighttime, which is usually the time when the heat should be, when the temperatures are lower and the heat should be removed by the breeze. So the fact that we do have these materials that have high thermal inertia, so they get the hot, the warmth, they storage it and they release it at night. What happens is that we don't have the nights anymore to refresh the environment. So one of the things that that we tried to do in the horizontal surfaces was, of course, to improve permeability, because this gives a different materials other than pavement, other than concrete, the one you use in the roads.
Yes.
Also, it's important to introduce vegetation in the grass level. It doesn't have to be high demand, water demanding vegetation. In fact, here we do have problems with the water. We usually tend to look to shadow gardening, which is those kind of plants that do not need water to and that don't need like extra water to grow. They are adapted to local climates. But what happens with the with this carpet vegetation is that it's creating like small shapes, but it's already helping to reduce the storage of heat in the lower areas. And also we would have like three layers of vegetation, right? We would have the carpet vegetation, we would have the bushes, and we would have the trees. So even though trees are the ones we directly think of, we also have to think about where it's useful to implement the other two. And of course, when we think about the about protection of the vertical planes, of course, again, we have the tree, but it's important to think that we could use climbing plants and introduction of gates that allow these climbing plants to grow. This helps to protect the facades of this direct solar radiation. And since the main problem that we have here is that the lack of isolation in the houses, one of the priorities is to block this direct gain. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well explained, honestly. That I think you spoke a lot about, like, this is the main issue that we are having, and I think we can relate both in Spain and in the Middle East in general. Sort of the controllableness that we have as urban planners and architects on the heat wave and radiation of sun exposure. And as you mentioned, vegetation and the way we can utilize its resources is one of the ways we can sort of reduce and allow sort of pedestrian walkability to be more accessible to the public in general. Mahmood, you got any question you would like to ask?
Well, I mean, I am the silent shark, right? I mean, I'm kind of waiting, you know, for the teams who were discussing really great ideas to speak up. So you did mention, you know, stuff about construction material, you know, and then how you were, you know, using certain construction materials, whether they, you know, heat reducing properties and so on. And actually one of the teams that they're actually working on, you know, either a code, you know, that they could help the use for this material, or, you know, they still kind of be making up their mind, or even experimenting with one certain material in here. In fact, one of them is actually already researching a certain insulating material over here. So I don't hear that team voice. So does anyone of them speak up, please? Can you speak up, please?
I'm gonna stop sharing so you can all turn on your cameras if you want, and we can see each other's faces.
Yeah,
and like a more informal
a big
conversation,
reveal, right?
Maybe you feel more comfortable if it's more
So
informal.
Dr. Bindo or whoever that is from that team.
Hi, good evening. And this is Bindu. Can you hear me?
Yep, and then we have also Ahmed Al Amri. He is also from that team, the guy who speak. Yes, Dr. Bindu.
Yeah, here I have one question. That is, you were talking about permeability in the pavement or in the road?
In the pavement.
In the pavement.
So this can be done. Are you using material or creating permeability in the concrete? Because when we are going for lightweight permeable concrete, won't it be more useful?
Well, there are certain materials that allow concrete to be permeable. They're very interesting. We're actually, now that we're in the construction documents phase, we do have to go to the specifics of materials. So for us, it's also a good opportunity to learn from you guys what you're researching. And we do know there are certain pavements that allow the water to drain on it. I'm not sure if this is what you were mentioning, Bindu, Dr. Bindu.
Yeah, this is what I'm mentioning because during rain times, because we can see some water will be stagnating and very difficult to permeate inside. So it will be good if you are creating a permeable pavement and a road, it will not be that much suggestible. But for pavement, so that this water will percolate inside, and that later can be created for creating this cool atmosphere also. This water that is collected underneath, or it can be drained through underneath that way. That yeah, some kind of
yeah, sorry, Dr. Bindu, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. Creating permeable concrete pavements, either concrete or lightweight materials. I'll prefer, I'm a structural engineer, I'll prefer permeable concretes with naturally available waste materials.
Yeah, that is what you're researching, yeah. Yes, Ahmed, go ahead.
If I may add, I think it can relate to my question at the very beginning. Good that you connected this, Mahmood. First of all, really great presentation and really well put thought process on how to make something that is better for the society and community, but also very important thing that it is implementable. So I do see the simplicity. You touch just the surface and make an impact with something that is achievable. I think for our group, we're looking into something that is a bit further to this. We are dealing nationally. We're dealing with, I would say, lack of, I wouldn't say lack of regulations, but the regulations are not up to date to the so this is what we're trying to develop, something where it could include recycling some of the materials. We are dealing with the temperature, the high temperatures that we have, and due to it being missing in the regulations, not a lot of the buildings included. It's more of a luxury, so the buildings do not get insulated. I would say the semi-public spaces are not regulated enough where they can they're supposed to create positive space. A lot of spaces in between the buildings are just left over, where at the end we will dump all the waste in between the buildings, and it creates sort of negative areas in the middle of our cities. So I just thought that is why I asked that question, because we are now trying to create in a very short time period some sort of a guideline where it could be implemented, for the greater Muscat. I thought to explain this.
I think personally, I think that one of the main risks of urban design is when we over-design, and it's something that happens a lot since we're architects and we go to school and we have to stand out, right? So sometimes in urban design, you do have to step back, as you were mentioning. Subtle things can achieve higher purposes. And one of the most interesting things about the urban spaces is when informal gatherings happen. So I think our role would be not as much to create an over designed space, but to create the favorable conditions for people to gather and to use it. So it has to go with understanding what are the constraints. In your case, it's extreme heat, right? Like extreme solar radiation, the fact that it changes its size, and I would focus my efforts for the regulation parts to provide like how can I say juzgado que permita como cambios. Yeah, like bandwidth for things, different things to happen, and to allow the citizens to decide how to use it. So it's more about creating the environment than to designing. I'm not sure if I'm very clear about what I'm mentioning here.
I know exactly what you mean. I mean, you know, as a policy planner myself, you know, we don't try to over-regulate. What we do, we actually provide a certain bandwidth that would allow for certain predicted political changes, economic changes, social changes, or even environmental changes, in a way that it would give a little bit of flexibility when it comes to whatever kind of new inventions are coming, a little bit of, you know, flexibility when it comes to crises. You know, I mean, Europe actually fell into the trap of over designing and over planning, and you know, COVID have exposed that big time. You know, when COVID came and cities are about to shut down and so on, Europe have actually struggled the most, sadly enough, just due to some over regulatory stuff when it comes to how to use certain urban spaces, how to use, you know, certain public spaces, how people should interact with these public spaces, and so on. While actually the Middle East, since it is, you know, still not over regulated yet, have actually dealt with it a bit better. I mean, I've seen it all, you know, east and west, and yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
I sort of see, I mean, just to comment on how on COVID impact, Mahmood, I sort of see that because of lack of the public spaces or actual public transportation and public spaces, we got really used to individual transportation
Lifestyle,
and, you know, almost. So once they said, okay, everyone worked from home, everyone was really isolated, and that was
yeah.
I mean, okay, for COVID, for COVID case, you know, it was positive, but I do not see any other positives in the normal.
Oh, yeah, I mean, but then, you know, I mean, the other big negative things, I mean, when you talk about Oman, you know, the Oman economy have suffered a lot. And then, you know, it did, you know, show a lot of weaknesses when it comes to the fact that we don't have a backbone, you know, actual logistics system that includes buses and so on. And then I think it, you know, it really hurts. So I'm not, you know, glorifying any place. I'm just, you know, kind of being honest in each area, and kind of, you know, showcasing. Javi, I think you're trying to say something, or Toni.
You, Toni.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Back to where when we don't have anything, or we don't know how to proceed in certain scenarios or environments. Sometimes what we do in our studio is to think about the vernacular strategies or the traditional strategies of certain cultures. Sometimes we have faced some projects in places we don't know, and sometimes we want to be creative, we want to design it all, but sometimes it's better to just stop and reflect on what is done already. And sometimes the vernacular traditional strategies of the cultures of similar spaces or similar parts of the world with similar environmental problems give you a sense of what we can do and how we can proceed in the future with our technology, but thinking about the essence of the design that are behind of all of these forms, all of these geometries, all of this technology of the past. It is sometimes in our culture, there's a lot to learn about, and we need to move forward with the tools of today. But sometimes when we don't know how to proceed in certain parts of the world, we do some research of how if in the past was this project or this master plan or this idea was said to be done, how the people from them will do that, and let's get this knowledge and bring it into the present in order to think about the future. I don't know if I expressed myself correctly, so that's something that we usually think about.
Yeah. I mean, that is very well put. And I think this is also a nice segue to the other team who was thinking about the redevelopment of the sports complex, Sultan Qaboos sports complex in Bosha. They do really have some nice ideas. And then as you guys talking about these different, design perspectives of leaving, certain shades, certain, trees and certain way to attract people to move along these areas because they were thinking of connectivity. So do you guys have a certain question? Ahmed Al-Rahbi team. Anybody?
Come on, guys.
Or are they like self-sustained? My God. All right. And then also, in that we have the mobility team as well. Those folks who are thinking really of mobility related stuff. Actually, one of them one of them is actually an Omani who is a TOD expert in currently working in China. So this is Hamid right here. So do you guys have certain stuff to ask over here?
Actually, thank you, Mahmood. Thank you for this great opportunity and presentation. Regarding the mobility, as I saw, you increase the pedestrian walkways and areas almost doubled. So I have like a question regarding the accessibility. As we know, it's important things in the urban planning. So while you are increasing the pedestrian areas, how you took the accessibility consideration regarding the parking for the private cars and for the public transportation. I saw one map you showed about the accessibility. Just if we can go again to that map and explain more about the accessibility point. Does it change before and after the pedestrian walkways changed? I mean, or you like how you did with them with it? I'm not sure if the question is clear or not.
Hey, I think it's clear. Like, what happened with these cars, right? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Well, this is a spooky topic. Actually, when we were the city council is usually very careful before removing parking spots because specifically in this neighborhood they do not have private parking, so they all park their cars on the street. So what they told us, the city council, is that they are committed to reducing the amount of parking space in the main facade of the school, but that we should try to respect the number of parking spaces in the other areas of the neighborhood, which if we go to the floor plan here, it's not that many areas. So because as you can see, yeah, this is a more clear. So one of the things that we do is that even though, for example, in this part right here, the actual width of the street has not changed, but what we can do working with materials and working with introduction of nature is to reduce the perception of the width of the street. So even though we still have here about 6 meters or so, the perception that you get as a pedestrian is that the street is only the width of the road, because if we use and the parking spots belong to the sidewalk language. I'm not sure if I'm being clear. So as contrary to what we had before, which is, let me show you here, we have all of this road that is made of the same material, and you only have the sidewalk. When you reduce it to here, the perception of the people is that it's safer, for example, to informally cross the street. And the perception of the cars is that it's narrower, so they slow down their cars. And the materials that we can use in the parking bags, we can call it like that. We can introduce new materials which are different to the road. So we can introduce these permeable pavements, or you know, it allows us to reconfigure the hierarchy of the street only with the language and not as much with the section of the street. Maybe we can see it in the section here. Let me show you. Is this answering your question or not? I'm not sure. I hope so.
Yes, somehow. Just regarding the public transportation, how far it is, or what is the closest?
Okay. So here we have the train system that connects with the whole community of Madrid, the whole region of Madrid, in this street right here. And in this street right here, we do have the underground entrance. Otherwise, from that, there's only one, like the bus lines, they take this road here and they go all over the neighborhood and they go back to the main streets. So regarding the public transportation, it's not a very complex problem, the one we have to face here, because they do not have such a strong infrastructure, and the one they have is mostly in the perimeter, so it does not truly affect the specifics of our school vicinity. But yeah, I understand your concern, and it's something that it certainly has to be taken care of, especially for the public transportation, because it's something that we encourage. But it's not a very dense neighborhood. As we know, public transportation works better the more dense the neighborhood is. So, yeah.
Yeah, clear. As I can see, you took it in consideration, and the accessibility still, we have like high accessible points. So well done and great job. Just I have another question regarding the socializing. I'm wondering about if you took the land uses in consideration, the type of land uses around the study area, or is it important to take it in consideration or not?
Well, of course, always.
Like if we have like the type of people who are living in that context, I mean.
Yes, I think it's primordial to take that into consideration. Here, we were how we worked here is that these agents. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forward because I'm trying to be to make it more clear here. So here, for example, these agents were talking regarding the social action. They were not only talking to the neighborhood with the neighbors, but they were also talking to the neighbor associations that already exist within the neighborhood, and some of them are very active and are very strong within the community, and they do have a certain power within the neighbors, and talking to them, knowing their opinion on what's going on in the neighborhood, providing them with the initial design of the project and hearing their feedback is a very, very valuable information that we got here. And of course we try to introduce. I think you always have to listen to the people who live there. What I find is the hardest part is to know when to let them speak, in a sense that sometimes what we find in these collaborative processes is that people end up designing the public space, but then what one neighbors want is completely different to what other neighbors want. And one wants a garden and the other one wants a hard plaza, and then they fight. And so it's important to include in the team people who have expertise in leading this participative process, because they do know how to manage these these workshops, and also how to manage the information. I think it's important that you provide, we as urban designers think about the problems that they give us, we provide an answer, and we listen to their feedbacks. So it's not that they work on a tabula rasa, you know, like on a blank page, but they work already on a proposal that already attends some of the goals that are given to us. I'm not sure if I'm being clear. So by doing this, you are helping them on one hand understand what you're trying to achieve, and in the other hand, they are helping us understand what things have been tried before and have not worked, or what things should be taken into considerations that are not currently being taken care of. Yes, and they live the neighborhood. They have information we do not have, and that we cannot get just by going visit the place for a couple of times.
Very cool, very cool. So Ahmed Al-Amri, you've been raising your hand.
Yes. Just to follow up on what you just said with regard to the to including the community and so on, I think it's one of the most challenging points, because some you just only inform, but some you actually take their expert opinions and so on. My question is a little bit, you know, closer to our requirements. I just wanted to ask the implementability of your proposal. Is this already is this a clear assignment from the city council that they will fund this, or is there you know, any investors coming in or something? Just I want to, you know, how will it be implemented?
Yes, it is already assigned. There's already a budget reserved for this project. And actually, the reason why we got the feedback of the birds at some point in the middle of the process was that they connected with another program, which was about the reintroduction of biodiversity in the city of Madrid. So by joining these two programs, what they got was a bigger budget from the upper government. So yes, it's going to happen. It already has the budget reserved for it, and if everything works as it should, in a couple of years, it should be already built.
Very cool, very cool, very cool. So we have some written question from Ahmed Al-Rahbi. He is one of the team leads. So he's saying that I'm thinking how to incorporate biodiversity at the sports complex. I mean, those guys are working at the sports complex. It's very important for, I think he meant public spaces, I guess. This question for you, Mahmood. I mean, before me, you can ask me all day long, so we have them for limited time. So this question is for you guys. First, go ahead.
Well,
so what do you think, to rephrase it? So as they have this large sports complex here in Oman, it is built from the 80s, and it's kind of an integrated type of thing, you know, and it still have some free land around that they're trying to develop, and also they're trying, you know, to redevelop, you know, whatever existing facilities over there. You know, part of their thought is that how to reconnect it, you know, because it is kind of an isolated island by these roads, you know, like a big highway in one chunk, and you know, another kind of like a general a road that is passing there, and also one hefty road from the other side. So, you know, do you think that, you know, incorporating biodiversity in terms of plants and choices could actually make the place more hospitable, you know, kind of, you know, more pleasant for people to use? And then, you know, then they're not only, you know, thinking to turn it into only a sport use, you know, but rather also kind of a family entertainment you know, to not be a single-use product anymore. You know, if it's not used for sport, then it's, you know, used for other type of entertainment. So to be almost a 24-hour type of location.
Well, that's a very tricky question, because one of the things of this project is that it's, I mean, biodiversity reintroduction works when you have biodiversity corridors. It's usually the problem that we find in the urban environment today is that we do have isolated islands of biodiversity, and it tends to decrease the biodiversity of these areas. So what's interesting about this project in particular, the one we're working at, is that since they are working with all of the schools of the city, because the city owns the land and they have the agency to intervene in the vicinity of the schools, what they're trying to create is this interconnected network, right? So we would have seats in every school of renaturalization and biodiversity, but this only works because this is trying to implement various seats in different parts, and these corridors would be happening with time, with boards, of course, and with intention from the city council. But that's the reason why they don't only want to intervene in the interior of the schools, but also in the surrounding areas. The fact that you are working in this sports arena, I think I would definitely try to introduce the biodiversity, but I would try to be realistic with what we can get. And I would try to find other projects or potential projects. Sometimes they don't exist. Sometimes you propose, okay, we can implement this here, and if these other things happen, this could all work together and work much better. So sometimes we have to think not only out of the box figuratively, but also literally, like, this is my side boundary. Okay, how far does my intervention really affect this place? Because it's usually not the same boundary what we get. And the goal here would be to make the project able to move outwards of where we're intervening. Then you have to face the problem of where do I get the information about what's biodiversity, biodiversity takes place in this specific area. Once I have this information, what environmental conditions I need. Well, I think it's beautiful. I would definitely try, and I would try to identify potential complementary projects that would support this goal of reintroduction.
So, I mean, if you would have, you know, some example or anything like that of some, you know, sports complex or some sport arena or something like this, you know, that we could kind of also aid our team over here, that would be actually really cool.
Oh, yeah. Maybe if you share with us the locations, we can try to think.
Yeah.
Silvia, the location is shared on the chat.
It
kind of
actually
shows you an
shared.
aerial.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of shows you an aerial view of the site.
Oh, I see.
Like you can get an idea
Yeah,
of
it's
what it looks
completely
like.
surrounded by infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, you do
Also,
have a lot of green in the sports arena.
Also, keep in mind that this area has a depression. It may not look clear because we have wadis. So some of the areas
Yeah,
they have
that's
a
what
depression.
I thought. Looks like a little wadi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Muscat, it is the cities of Wadi.
True.
Of Wadis. It is almost the curse and the gift of Muscat City.
Yeah, but
True.
that's beautiful. It's something you can all work with. I think that's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I
because
mean, you know,
we don't have a
they
drainage
exist
it is
system.
and they
beautiful.
don't.
It has a lot of positive things to it, but it is also right now a
Yeah,
source of floods.
I
You know,
see
so
what you mean.
it is, you know, the kind of the curse and the gift. I mean, one of my first publications actually was Muscat City, the city of no toll, the gift and the curse of Wadis. This was like 11 years ago, you know. So
I will check it.
Yeah, I mean, you could find it online. Just, you know, type it up. And then also we have also two other teams. I mean, since we already started talking about climates and so on, so it's also kind of a good segue to it. Two other teams. I mean, one team is working on sustainable, urban planning, and the other one is about kind of response to a certain climate change challenge that Muscat is actually facing, and they kind of experimenting with certain things. So does any one of these teams want to share something or want to say something?
Please don't be shy.
No,
Yeah, I
we're
mean,
very nice people.
Yeah. They will never find nicer than you. So if I could see over here, Team C and Team B.
Yeah.
Anyone
This
of
is
you?
Tahtan from Team C, the Sustainable Development and Planning team. That's our task. So yeah, my question, I mean, this is something I noticed, is that whenever someone talks about sustainability, they will only focus on environment, on the environmental impact, but they always forget about the social impact and the economical impact, which are, the sustainability is 3 pillars. It's environment, economy, and also social. So I saw that you talked about in your presentation, which was very amazing to me, and I learned a lot from it, which I'm going to definitely use in our research. Is that you talked about the environment, and you also talked about the social impact. But can you give us a couple of the economical impact that happened within the research or what you researched from an economical point of view? In terms of, I don't know, circular economy, or, if you were promoting any kind of thing like that.
Well, actually, one of the conversations that we held with the Madrid City Council was that no matter what we do, since this is a public funded project, what this neighborhood really needs is private investment, because otherwise, I mean, the institutions can go as far as they can, but they need to create an environment that allows private inversions to come in. And the problem with this neighborhood right now is that since this is one of the most vulnerable within the city, one of the first things that they need to do is to regain the trust of the rest of the city. And this goes by improving the quality of the urban space, improving the perceived safety of the neighborhood, inviting people to come over by the use of the public equipments that they have, such as sports areas and so on. Because if the perception that the rest of the city has of this neighborhood doesn't change, there's not much that could be done. Because as you were mentioning, social and economic and economy is as much important as environmental impact. So what is happening here is that we had to make an effort again to be realistic on, okay, which is the scope we can intervene in, and it turns out it's not as much as we would love, but we can create create new impressions of the neighborhoods, and we can do our little help to regain the trust of the city towards this neighborhood. So this will be the first step to achieve the other two aspects that you were mentioning about economic and social and economic equilibrium. Certainly, they are much needed. The environmental ecology, environmental sustainability alone doesn't do much, but it can help. It can help trigger the other two aspects, and especially in this neighborhood, because the typology of the housing that exists here is not mixed use; it's mostly residential. So it's very hard to introduce another economical activities here. So this is an ongoing problem for an ongoing project. We are on the first step, but yes, definitely.
Very cool, very
Thanks.
cool. And then,
thank you.
And then, I would also add something that we have done something for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Department, where we have estimated the amount of clean air that every single tree provide, and then we turn it into what we call green dollars. The way that we have calculated the green dollars, it is through the well-being of each one of these trees. We didn't realize is that every 2 trees we implement that are above 5 years old of ash or even oak, it could actually prevent an asthma for 1 resident in Minneapolis. And then we did, estimate the cost of asthma treatment per year per person, and it was somewhere between the region of 10 to 30,000 USD. 10
Wow.
being with insurance to actually 20 as in being without. So that is one. And then through the air quality stuff, we did actually put an estimation saying that city of Minneapolis spent somewhere between $6 to $8 million per year, as in to use actually certain type of chemical sprays to actually reduce smog in the morning. So by having these trees, we were reducing the amount of spray that they need to do by actually 60%, meaning that we are actually cutting down on the cost by another 3 million USD. So as we were estimating that each tree in Minneapolis that we were growing, as an as an kind of a green dollar, each tree would actually save the city 1.4 kind of thousand USD, about $35 per hour. It is actually more productive than a working person in Minneapolis. So with that, with that type of logic, we were actually justifying that in the building code. So we would actually mandate if a building is trying to build, we would actually tell them to do some certain basic calculation and give them the formula of how much CO2 they would emit. And then for that, they would actually offset it by actually growing these trees, which is, not purely for the environment, but then for the city, for us to save money on health and on actually, other services. So this is also another example for you, Qahtan.
That's a great example.
Thanks, Mahmood.
Oh, no problem, man. I mean, I have worked in so many nations, so I can bring a lot of these.
I've actually heard about this. Forgot what it's called, but it's the after effect. I think Harvard calls this thing something. I forgot the name, but it's the impact of treating the root cause of the issue. And yeah, like you mentioned, there was a case study of something. I think it's also related to lung cancer or something like that. And yeah.
Different cities, I mean, use different methods to estimate it. But then, I came from the Chicago School of Economics. So we don't use the word environment a lot. It's all money, man. So we just call it green money, green dollar. That's what we do, man. So for the climate change folks, I know that you guys were thinking with me kind of out loud about recycling water and thinking about desalination plants and so on, and then how that could be used. So anyone from that team B, that want to say anything? Anyone from team B?
I mean, I could shed a bit of light, but I'm not sure if the rest of the team are there. Probably if they have the chance to speak also.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the let me check. So let me call some names. So we don't actually hold our guests longer because we have been taking a lot of their time actually, and then they're being very nice with us. So from team the climate change solution, we have Neda, we have Saeed,
the water,
Ahmed Al-Amri as well, and so on. So we did actually touch then on all of you already. So in case that anyone have any burning questions, I'm leaving that for Boss Muneer and then for the amazing team behind to kind of conclude this session. Sorry that I cannot come in, but this is kind of my way of dragging the teams into conversations.
I have a question again. This is Bindu. My question is again regarding the plantations that is done. You were talking about the plants hanging or creeper plants that will be used on the walls that way to reduce the carbon dioxide. Am I right? Or a cooling effect to bring cooling effect inside. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes, it's mostly to protect. Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it is to prevent the temperature. Am I right? Yeah. Here I have two questions. Is it hanging, that is creeping downwards without the roots hanging, roots coming on the walls, or just hanging? Because there are different types of plants, right?
Yeah. So the one that we are using specifically in this project is one you introduce a tree planter in the lower area of the facade. So this is where the plant exists, and then it starts growing upwards. But there are certainly many other types. But this is the one that the Madrid City Council does have guidelines regarding recommendations for the introduction of the nature-based solutions within the city of Madrid, and this is one of the guide that they give. So by if you have the facade here, this is the public space. You create a planter just in the intersection of these two planes, and this is where you allow it to grow.
Allow it to grow. That is creep upwards. This question, why I asked is, if it is creeping upwards, that is trying to do different plants, they will have roots also coming on the walls, right?
Yes, you have to be very careful, because otherwise it can interfere with the construction system of the facade.
That's construction. Yeah, that will spoil the structure. Yeah, and maintenance cost will be more again.
Yeah, but what we usually do is to add a new layer to the facade to host the plant. So you keep the original facade protected, and the roots of the growing plant, they don't interfere with the facade. It actually sometimes when you don't foresee it could create some problems with filtrations to the interior of the housing. So it's a very good question, and it's very important that you foresee how our interventions in the public space could affect the private life of the people who live there. So yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Not only private life, here structural problem also. Yeah, structural problem, because this will interfere, and the walls will be damaged soon. Its life will be, durability of the walls will be reduced if this is creeping on the walls and going up.
Yes, definitely. You have to foresee and provide an extra layer to the exterior that is able to host this plant, and to provide the adequate pattern for it to grow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understood. So that initially there will be an additional cost of providing these facilities.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We're gonna take one more last question, so we don't keep our amazing speakers here for the rest of the night.
Thank you.
We have Yasmin. Do you mind asking the question?
Yes. Hi.
All right.
Yasmin from mobility team. I have one question for you. Did you put in mind, when you planned the space in front of the school, did you have in mind the pedestrian connectivity, like rest of the area, to that space? And how? Because we are trying to make a walkable area as much as possible. So is there like something, did you have something like this in your mind? Did you understand my question?
Yes. I mean, the problem with this specific project is that this neighborhood, contrary to the rest of the city of Madrid, it already has a lot of pedestrian areas. The problem is that they were not maintained properly, so they are very degraded. So it was not as much a problem of increasing the pedestrian area, and it was more about making it appealing for people to use it. For people to use it, what they need to feel is they need to feel comfortable in there. Sometimes we need to put ourselves in the in the skin of a user of the city and think about how we move in the city. You need to be physically comfortable, which means that you need to be protected from extreme conditions such as extreme sun exposure, or in the winter time here in Madrid, people always go in the sidewalk that it's receiving the sunlight. But it also, you need to feel safe in the public space, and that's also very important. So safety, we try to bring it into the projects by increasing the use of the public space, because as we were saying, when people use the public space, you have informal surveillance. I don't know how to call it. It's
visually safe.
Exactly. People don't like, especially, well, never mind. I'm trying to clarify my mind to go straight to your answer. So what's the specific problem that you are facing with your project, Jasmine?
It's not exactly a problem, more than this is the project, that walkability, to make things more walkable in general.
You would be surprised here in Oman how little there is space to walk.
Yeah,
like it's kind of crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like to make the Muscat walkable is the goal.
Yeah,
to walk everywhere. Yeah.
But I think it's also important that joined to walkability is soft mobility strategies, because walkability has a very small radius within the city. But if you want to implement it, it's good if you introduce other means of transportation with soft mobility. By soft mobility, we could see bicycle or electrical bicycles or electrical how do you say, like scooters. So it's not only to foster or to increase the pedestrian use of the street, which of course we have to do by making the space comfortable, making it safe, and making it beautiful. But also, if we introduce another intermediate means of transportation between pedestrian and the car, which allows us to increase the radius of people using the street. Because if you go somewhere that takes you 10 minutes, you can go this far if you're walking. If you still want you to take 10 minutes and you're using an electrical scooter, you can go a little bit farther within the city. So, and at least if you're taking the car, you could almost go anywhere, right? But yeah, let's not just focus. I will not just focus on pedestrian, which of course I would, like these three main things that we were mentioning. Access, also. Well, I'm not sure if how is the topography in Muscat, and in Madrid we have pretty strong topography in certain areas, so accessibility is sometimes an issue too. But yeah, I would certainly go with safety, beauty, program.
To make it more appealing.
You would, Javi, turn it on. Javi has something to say.
Hi. So I think that one thing, probably the most important to make it more walkable, the city, is to make it more appealing. So what I mean is, like, for example, when the city has different velocities. When you go in the car, you can perceive different things than when you are walking. So, for example, a commercial street has different features than a main street. So when if you want to make it walkable, you have to program it correctly in order like to make it more appealing, to make it more useful, to make it more, I don't know. So I think that instead of focus in design the public space, probably it's more important focusing in programming correctly. I don't know.
Yeah, like one of the main problems is heat. So we're trying to program this walkway to be maybe like have cooler environment than the street.
Yeah.
Let's say one of the ideas to paint it white to reflect the heat out. Another one to
the color albedo. Yes, important.
Yeah, introduce greenery and so.
Yes. But what I mean is like also you need to make anchor spots. You need to make spots that attract people to go there and to attract people to walk by walk. So that's the important thing, because if you don't have these spots, probably the people is not gonna use it, because probably you're gonna make a really beautiful spot, but a really beautiful space, but it's not very enjoyable. It's probably a little bit boring. So you see just the first part, you don't want to walk all along because you already see it. I don't know if it needs function.
Yeah, it needs function. Yeah,
function. Yes, right. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I got your idea.
True. I'm just gonna add to that, Javi and Yasmin. You actually touched on the point, because right now, especially here in Boshar and also in an area called Al Ansab, which is kind of closer to the stadium, they have actually created a pathway, walkable pedestrian, but it's kind of going in the middle of the mountains. So at night, it feels very unsafe, and there is no any light electrical system that provides visuality on that pathway. So no one's actually using it. And I think it's about like 1.5 kilometers. So that's 1.5 kilometers being unused, and there's no anchor for it. So it leads to one place to the other, and there is no experience in between those two spaces.
Yeah.
So you only have the pathway, and there's like sand and stones and sand and stones. There's no experience. There's no experience. There's no dialogue that you are having with the city and the space that is surrounding that area. All right, so we're not gonna keep our amazing speakers here for too long. I'm pretty sure you guys all have questions all night. Again, thank you, Javi, Silvia, and Toni, for this amazing talk. And guys, please feel free to follow them on Instagram. We have provided their Instagram on the WhatsApp chat, and also their website too is available. And I'm pretty sure in the future, us OTU and the team, we're gonna be working maybe on future projects too. So it's a good opportunity to kind of share knowledge between our amazing people in Spain and here as OTU here in Oman. And I think it's the time to collaborate internationally and kind of expand our radius and not just think about local architecture here in Oman, but also think about Spain, China, Boston. Oh yeah, next week we're gonna have an amazing speaker from Boston. So keep that in mind. So we're gonna try to catch on every single continent. There's like seven continents. We're gonna have a person from each one. To get the full image of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of have our fingers everywhere. So try, to bring the best of the best. Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much. And then thank you so much, Muneer, for being an amazing OTU guy who's, who's been curating only the best. So thank you so much.
Thank you all. And see you again, hopefully. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.